Hey, how's it going everybody? You got Sketch here and welcome back to the channel. On this episode, we're taking a look at an SNK beat 'em up that I would see on Nick Arcade often when it was still on the air. This is one of those games that after seeing it on TV, had me bolting to the nearest arcade with an MVS cabinet, hopefully containing this cartridge. Today, we're checking out Robo Army, developed and published by SNK, released into arcades in 1991. This will be re-released to the Neo-Geo CD in 1995, and later ported to the Switch, Xbox One, and PS4 in 2017 via Hamster's Arcade Archives collection. Before we get much further, let's check out the story. The story is very simple with Robo Army. In the year 20XX, Maxima and Rocky roll out to battle the evil corporation known as the Hell Geed, who have taken over Neo Detroit. The army of military robots are the creation of Dr. Geed, who has a campaign for taking the brains of citizens and implanting them into machines, and his daughter Tia is being held hostage as his next experiment. The Hell Geed have the city under siege and are wreaking havoc on anything that gets in their path. Captain Rocky and Maxima are the city's only hope to liberate the people and save the scientist's daughter. Ready up, it's about to get buck in Neo Detroit. Gameplay wise, you've got a 2D side-scrolling beat 'em up where it's you versus a cyborg army. The combat is actually pretty dope, albeit simple, with 3 buttons to punch, kick, and jump. As you slice through the Robot Legion, you'll battle to the end boss through 6 stages of pure mayhem. The kick works more as a back attack to get enemies that are behind you rather than turning around. And you've also got several crush attacks linked to the bar underneath your health, and these are pretty devastating, even one-phase clapping mid-bosses at times. The crush attacks have varying levels of power, with the top of the meter dropping a screen-clearing wave, with each subsequent power level dishing out lesser yet effective attacks. If your meter is empty, your special attack will be a forward lunge kick. These specials can clap up bosses pretty quick if you have a mostly full meter. Certain power-ups will turn your character into a vehicle where you can ram into your enemies until you transform back into a humanoid. And your command grab lets you carve through enemies like slicing pizza. So you've got some pretty sweet toys in that utility belt to use. There's also a few throwable items like stray barrels and cars that you can casually toss at your ops, and these are often one-hit kills with whatever they come in contact with. These are really good for smaller enemies and taking out large groups without using a crush attack. Pipes and arms of robots can be used as clubs, so you can bash some cyborg hard drives in, but do eventually degrade over time. You even have a stage where you rappel down into the enemy stronghold, similar to Battletoads, where your kick button becomes a back punch as you venture down the ropes. Enemies in true beat 'em up fashion will gang up on you if you're not careful, so if you can keep them to one side, or at least keep your bigger attacks on standby, you should be able to manage the crowd. Bosses are all pretty big and only get larger as you make it towards the back end of the game, and range from mechanical animals to larger cyborgs and monstrosities like the final boss. Sometimes you can punch lock bosses, but if they escape your flurry of punches, they can serve you up very fast. There's also a boss rush where all previous enemies have increased health points leading up until the final encounter, so pay attention to the effective attacks early on. Keep in mind, this is an arcade game after all, and its main goal is to separate you from your pocket money. How, you may ask? Well, enemies serve up a lot of damage and you can expire quickly if you aren't careful. Punches from enemies will knock off 1 piece of health, where kicks, rushes, mines, and rogue barrels will knock off 2 health points. Some attacks can shave off as many as 3 health points at a time, and you don't have much in the way of invincible frames either. When you complete a stage, your health does get refilled, but your special meter does not. Graphics wise, Robo Army is pretty sick with some awesome animation as you comb the streets of the cyborg menace. You get some cool looking cyborg sprites to body on your 6-stage tour. This and the 8-man arcade game have a few parallels, though Robo Army does have a lane of its own. Enemies perish in some pretty spectacular ways beyond just exploding into heaps of rubble. You can punch the torsos off of most enemies, and as mentioned earlier, your command grab lets you slice clean through your enemy. Several enemies also use the scaling techniques seen in many other SNK games, so death animations are aplenty here. You'll see a few enemy types like the Robot Legion soldiers, along with a few variations like Robo Dogs, birds, and bats that can shoot sonar at you. There's also a lot of stage hazards like landmines and barrels that will knock off hefty amounts of health. The scuba robots are a nice touch, and it's amazing they somehow don't rust down in those sewers. Stage designs are all varied enough without arenas repeating too much, all with some well-detailed backgrounds and vignettes through the game's run. There's even a few spots where you'll free captive humans before getting their brains removed to become future Geed soldiers. While not much of the environment is destructible, there are some cool effects like footsteps splashing through water and an abundance of SNK and Neo-Geo signs around town. Bosses are the star of the show here, with some wild creations like the mechanical gorilla and a horse-sized robotic dog. There's also a boss that looks like a giant Mauser, along with a behemoth cyborg cop that makes Eddie E from Final Fight look like a teddy bear in comparison. It's also got a gun and a retractable baton, so tread cautiously here. The final encounter with Dr. G's disembodied head is also pretty sick as it shifts from various mechanical bodies, so the enemy variety is pretty good overall. Cutscenes between each stage show Dr. G riling up his robot masses and proclaiming he's about to take you to hell for opposing his ranks. The end cutscene shows you releasing Tia from her experimental prison and implies turning Rocky and Maxima back into humans, which is an interesting way to tie things off in another surprisingly happy SNK ending. Sound-wise, Robo Army has some jams that bang heads like heavy metal. Yamapi 1 and Connie handle the sound and music here, and it does not disappoint with a variety of vibes. There are some hype tunes along with some more moody tracks as you battle through Neo Detroit, and it's a solid backbeat while delivering some vicious chops to the robot ops. Sound effects are nice and crunchy here with the clang of metal as you destroy each cyborg. While there is no in-game speech, your characters two have sound bites from when they're taking damage or losing a stock. Robo animals will also wail as they achieve their final form, and each explosion has a nice bit of weight to it here. Robo Army is a rad beat 'em up that I've always had a soft spot for after seeing it on Nick Arcade way back in the day. Whenever this came up on the video challenge, it was always fun to watch people that never played it give it a try. Upon finding a machine at my local arcade and trying it myself, it was a great time even though I would just get thrashed back in those days. Playing it again these days, however, shows it's a stylized and well put together title and arguably one of the better SNK beat 'em ups. For one of SNK's early arcade titles, this one is a certified banger. For those that are interested in beat 'em ups that border on obscure, this is a good pickup, though this title got a fair bit of promotion when it was new, and for a pretty good reason. If you're a fan of Neo-Geo games or beat 'em ups in general, this is a solid pickup to add to your physical or digital collection. Robo Army gets an 8.5 out of 10 and comes recommended to beat 'em up fans as well as arcade game fans, as this one has style and substance. It's also a challenging game to get through taking minimal damage or even getting 1cc deathless clears, which aren't impossible, but this game will make you work for it. Once you figure out how everything at your disposal works, you'll be cleaning up the streets in no time. This is available on the Xbox One, PS4, and Nintendo Switch via the arcade archives for $8, as well as the Neo-Geo AES and MVS systems, along with the Neo-Geo CD. Neo-Geo carts can go anywhere from $200 to roughly $500 for loose and complete copies, with the Neo-Geo CD version going for around $200 complete at the time of this recording. If these strike your interest, play it however you can. And if you made it this far into the video, I thank you so much for watching. If you find these videos helpful, that's awesome. I'm glad you can use it as a resource. Check back often, we'll have more reviews and commentaries come up in the near future. But until then, take it easy and stay safe out there. I'll see you on the next one.